In torrents of rain and raging currents, one man's past pain collided with a desperate mother's fight for survival. Silano, haunted by loss, felt a stirring in his chest as he spotted a bedraggled dog clinging to her sinking raft with two trembling pups. Every howl echoed his own grief. As the river threatened to swallow them, he tied a rope around his waist and waded into the chaos. A slip, a gasp, and time blurred as he plunged into icy depths. Would he rescue them and finally rescue himself from memory's grip? This is the moment everything truly changed forever. Silano stood ankle-deep in icy water, heart thudding in his chest as the storm's roar drowned out his own thoughts. Each step forward felt like walking into the mouth of a beast. The swollen river grasped at his legs with cold, unrelenting fingers. He had not set foot this deep into the water since the day it stole his wife and daughter. Years had passed, but the river's memory remained etched in his bones, a scar that throbbed with every drop of rain. Yet now, through the downpour, he saw her, a mother dog on a makeshift raft of wood and plastic, soaked to the skin and frantic. Two tiny puppies pressed into her, their whimpers carried away by the wind. Silano's breath caught as he watched the raft tilt and slip beneath the current's weight. Something inside him snapped. He grabbed the coil of rope he'd stashed by his shack, tied it around his waist in a practiced knot, and stepped deeper into the surge. Each moment stretched into an eternity as mud and debris swirled around him, but he kept his eyes fixed on the dog whose primal fear mirrored his own. The raft lurched again, and before he could think, he lunged forward, his hand closing around the fur of the nearest pup just as it slipped into the void. He hauled it toward his chest, clutching it beneath his soaked jacket. The mother dog growled, not in anger but in relief, her howl merging with the river's cry. Even as the water rose to his neck, he reached for the second puppy, every muscle burning with cold and adrenaline. Darkness crept at the edges of his vision, the river's pull tugging at him with relentless force. Then, as he braced himself, the rope around his waist jerked tight, a lifeline summoned by a voice above. A teenage boy, eyes wide with alarm, gripped the other end of the rope on the bridge. His shout cut through the storm. "Hold on, we've got you." Below him, two more villagers scrambled down the muddy bank, their hands gripping vines and stakes. Together they leaned back, muscle and will against the river's wrath, and slowly inched Silano and the puppies toward the shore. Each pull felt like shifting mountains, but finally, with a final heave, the group tumbled onto wet grass. Silano lay gasping, the puppies squirming free and wriggling into his arms. The mother dog staggered beside him, her muzzle brushing his hand in trembling gratitude. Above, the clouds began to part, letting pale light filter through. The villagers knelt around him, breathless, damp, but alive. The boy offered Silano his jacket to wrap around the shivering pups, while another fetched blankets from a waiting tray. Silano's chest tightened as he watched the mother dog nestle her puppies against warm fabric. In that moment, the river was no longer a tomb, but a crucible that had forged new bonds. When the storm finally eased, word of the rescue spread through the village. Neighbors arrived with hot tea, bread, and concerned questions. Cameras clicked as a photo of Silano cradling the mother dog and her pups by a crackling fire made its way online. Donations poured in, food, blankets, even offers to help rebuild his dilapidated hut. Yet Silano remained silent. He accepted help with quiet dignity, never speaking of fame or recognition. Instead, he sat by the fire each evening, the three dogs curled at his feet, and stared at the river with a calm he had not felt in years. Children from the village brought him drawings of the rescue, while locals left bowls of water and scraps of food on his doorstep. Every gesture warmed him more than any blanket. At night, as he drifted to sleep, he heard the mother dog's soft snores and the puppy's contented sighs. It was a lullaby of survival and second chances, a melody he thought he'd never hear again. A week after the rescue, a volunteer gently asked Silano why he risked his life for creatures so small and unknown. He looked down at the mother dog, now resting her head on his boot, and his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because once I couldn't save the ones I loved, but this time I could." The words, simple and raw, resonated with everyone who heard them. The villagers nodded in understanding. Each had their own losses, their own battles against forces beyond control. Silano's act of compassion became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even the most broken hearts can learn to beat again when given the chance to heal another's pain. In saving the mother dog and her pups, he had reclaimed a piece of himself he believed was lost forever. In the days that followed, the riverbanks slowly returned to stillness. Trees that had bowed beneath the flood began to straighten. Paths once washed away reappeared, and children dared to return to the water's edge, tossing pebbles and laughing as if the deluge had been a distant dream. Solano and the dog family became inseparable, a living testament to resilience. Locals whispered that when the wind rustled through the reeds, it carried the echo of a mother dog's howl and a man's solemn vow. They said the river, once a harbinger of sorrow, had become a guardian of life, forever changed by a single act of bravery. And though Solano never sought the spotlight, his story rippled far beyond the village, inspiring countless others to see second chances not as gifts, but as responsibilities. As you watch this story, remember that every life, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, holds the power to change us. A mother dog fighting the flood, a man confronting his past, and a community coming together in the darkest hour, all converged in a single unforgettable moment. If their courage moved you, share this tale, leave a comment about a time you found hope in unexpected places, and believe that kindness can still rise above the storm. One selfless deed can turn the tide, and perhaps like Solano, you'll find that in saving another, you save yourself. In the weeks that followed, Solano found himself waking before dawn, guided not by guilt but by purpose. He would step outside as soft light painted the sky in pinks and purples, the mother dog and her pups trailing behind like loyal shadows. Together they walked to the river's edge, where he taught curious children to respect its power by pointing out hidden currents and treacherous banks. The villagers watched in awe as the once reclusive old man spoke kindly to the dogs, each word gentle and patient, a stark contrast to the silence he'd worn like armor. Under his tutelage, they learned how compassion could forge strength. Younger boys practiced hauling ropes in controlled drills, while the girls cared for the rescued family, discovering that empathy could heal wounds deeper than any flood. Solano began documenting his lessons in a tattered notebook, sketching rope knots, water patterns, and the dog's expressions, images that later became the foundation of a grassroots safety program. Volunteers from nearby towns arrived, bringing medical supplies and offering to translate his notebook into guides for other flood-prone communities. Though he shied away from interviews, his message spread: when you save a life, you owe it to every life after. Even the mother dog, once frantic and fearful, grew confident enough to lead the pups along newly repaired paths, as if guiding future generations towards safer ground. On quiet evenings by the fire, Solano would flip through his notebook and stare into the flames, the dogs curled at his feet, their steady breathing a reminder that love endures beyond loss. In those moments, he no longer felt defined by tragedy, but by the hope he'd sparked in others, a testament that one courageous choice can transform not just a life, but an entire community.